Hey there, heart-centered human, and welcome back to the Josh Campbell channel, where I help you escape toxic men and imagine yourself a healthy relationship. So this video is going to teach you how you don't need to use dating strategies that are continually shoved down your throat, but instead just being, because that is attracting emotionally unavailable men. Now, a prime example of this is a bloke called Matthew Hussey. Let's see what he has to say.
But it's a Rubik's Cube that's not quite finished. When someone finishes a Rubik's Cube, they put it down. Right? But until they've figured it out, they keep going.
Never want to finish that Rubik's Cube.
Have something that people are always trying to figure out about.
There we go. Dating coaches like this will teach you how to manipulate, seduce, and use tactics that are probably not you to attract your man. Now, this is only going to attract men that just have surface level connection with you and are probably playing the exact same games. Not something you want to fall into, right? Also, as human beings, we tend to mimic one another. We tend to, when we're clueless or unsure of ourselves, we tend to copy and paste ideas and beliefs and behaviors. I know that Matthew Hussey is not fully embodied, integrated, and having a healthy relationship of his own, not to call him out, but he is not a living example of who you want to become or be. So be careful who you take your influence from, take your advice from, because essentially they could just be a persona, a mask that you could be copying when in deep down, just like the deep dark depths of a tip of the iceberg, we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. Now, this is why I created this video, to help you show up in dating as authentically and truthfully, potently you, instead of using tactics to hide behind. Now, don't hold shame around yourself though, because it's normal and human nature to want to imitate and copy others when we're unsure of our sense of self. But when you're falling into a trap of attracting rather than just being genuinely attractive, you can fall into traps that Robert Greene has easily identified in his book called Seduction, that you can become what I call the siren. You are a woman who is embodying this kind of unhealthy feminine to attract what I call the polar unhealthy masculine. That's the rake. Imagine Marilyn Monroe. The puffy lips, the kind of dresses and seductive character using her body and her expressions. That's only going to attract the patriarchal, tyrannical male. The polarities exist in life, and this is kind of how we are magnetic to the opposite to balance ourselves out in an equilibrium. So using seductive tactics is only a way to temporarily create some feelings of belonging or temporarily escape what you may be fearing in abandonment or feeling uncertain in your sense of self. Now, this tactic of self-preservation can leave you very vulnerable in all the wrong ways. Let's take Ryan Gosling in Crazy Stupid Love. This movie shows him walking himself down a man cave into what he perceives as being the attractive man. He sees this as a life that has no meaning, and he starts to realize that his deliriousness and his belief set of falling down a trap of chat up lines and trying to sleep around with loads of women is deeply, darkly dissatisfying. Well, to make things worse, women's ideals for men are based around Disney as a young child. When our brain is most impressionable as a child, we are having propaganda fed to us by Disney to show that you require a Prince Charming to save you from your castle. This essentially makes you codependent to a man to come in, swoop in and save you. Princesses show off this aura of perfection, this aura of sweet innocence, this seduction in its way to look beautiful for a man to swoop in and save you. Using this tactic is only going to play the same games with men that operate in the same headspace. This is not depth. This is not responsive. This is not demanding of true love. And we're still living in this traditional masculinity because post-Soviet society made men shame their sensitivity. When we were expressing our feminine natures of being emotionally available, we were told to man up, to not be too sensitive. We were told not what not to be, rather than what to be. There is no real positive influences of what a healthy masculine is in our role models these days. We are presented it, just like I say, with rom-coms of kind of sleazy dudes with chat-up lines, or the drug cartel mafia boss who's status-driven and truly gaining lots of attention and successful in that way. All the while, if we dial it right back, we are ingrained instinctually by survival of the fittest mentality. Men really truly believe they need to be a persona, a being that competes in one way, shape or form to assert themselves on a place on the dominance hierarchy. The higher up that hierarchy, the more fruitful your life. And now you understand why men act in the way they do. You playing those same games is totally abandoning your own needs. You're allowing the man, if you're not taking an empowered stance or a true, authentic stance, to decide the levels of closeness and intimacy between the two of you. You start to activate your anxious attachment while his avoidance is deactivating. You're likely going to attract relationships that are shallow, surface level, unpredictable, and really lacking integrity. Now, this is why I wanted to make this video for you to take away how you can start to carve your best self, how you can start to discover yourself and explore yourself to show up in dating by just being yourself. It's a cliche because if everybody was to be themselves, life would be quite easy, right? But being yourself is totally difficult in a world where we're shamed to be fully expressionate, use our voice. We're shamed or feel guilty around behaviors that we're told not to be when we're young children. And potentially our parents that we can't really control have had a massive patterning through our childhood that lives with us in adulthood. Now, this is where we're going to explore how you can unravel those patterns and genuinely show up today as a true version of yourself. Now, the first tip I'll give you to the solution to being more of yourself is speaking your truth. Now, this is having you become your own revolutionary to your life. Imagine what you're living in is tyranny. You're following rules and orders from external sources, just like the dating coaches you see online that teach you these seductive tactics. Rather than follow people who posture, filter, and edit themselves and are not truly embodied and integrated with what they do in their world, they're not walking the walk, they're rather talking the talk. You could be accidentally consuming from people who are faking it, and so you are likely to mimic and imitate fakers. So to speak your truth, clean up your diet around how you consume external content on social media and even your friendships and family members. Now, we've proofed our brain that being a revolutionary is very dangerous. We see Martin Luther King get executed. We see Nikola Tesla somewhat vanish from the face of the earth when he came up with a disruptive technology that could probably provide resourceful energy for the planet. But instead, it takes away from the demand of creating wars where the power structure of the world relies upon. I'm not going to get in that in depth, but this is a huge factor why you're not speaking up for yourself and potentially taking the victim stance when it comes to speaking your needs. Conflict is scary. Standing out is scary. Standing out back in the old days could potentially mean that you get executed in front of your entire village. Now, that stuff is deeply ingrained within our DNA through past generational trauma. It's not an easy thing to shake off. So just like I say, cleaning up your consumption, cleaning up your external world will help you begin on the process of becoming truer to yourself. Whether it's your religious beliefs, your own opinion, your stance on a particular matter with your friends, whether it's something you want to post online unapologetically, it's something you believe that you genuinely have passion around. Start practicing doing before you overthink yourself out of it. It's where that magic Mel Robbins 5-second rule comes from. If we count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and act with our body and just do, then our thought patterns will follow. If we interrupt those thought processes with action, and that's why exercise is brilliant too, we can actually reverse engineer our thought patterns, our beliefs, by taking the lead with our bodies, with our voice, our mouth. And as much as we like removing everything around us, from what I did when I was coming out of toxic lad culture, I remember finding myself friends in Camp America when I went there for a summer, and then came to Bali and found some really inspiring entrepreneurs, and then had lifelong friends from university. These were people who I genuinely trusted. They were almost like my wise counsel. I could genuinely be vulnerable, open up with them, and they can give me behavioral confirmation as to what I believe could be my true self. They were responding to me. As social creatures, we learn from one another. So we depend on others to realize where we're going wrong and what we're doing right. That's why we need positive influences and people who genuinely want the best for us, because they're basically carving us into a pristine Greek god or Greek woman statue. It's what we call the Michelangelo effect. Someone who genuinely wants the best for you and carves you into your best self. So we need to be okay with not belonging, but stepping out of a toxic circle and starting to become an example. But I can assure you, when you become an example, you'll be magnetic to the right people who assure you that you are okay in what you believe in, and speaking your truth was never a bad thing, and actually it was a gift. Another gentle reminder is that your word is your wand, and you always need to remind yourself what is up for stake if I continue to appease, play victim, and not speak up for my needs. You're likely going to settle for emotionally unavailable men who really don't reciprocate and are going to continually be avoidant and be tyrannical, just like the thing you're trying to escape. So stand up for yourself, speak your truth. That is number one. Point number two is about aligning first before you find your authentic self. I remember a story vividly when I was in my first year at university. They call this university freshers, but I had a student life mentor who had gone through 4 years of university. She came to visit me. She said, "Josh, don't be so anxious. Just be whoever you have ever wanted to be." Now, it's not easy, is it? I thought I could just put on a mask and just pretend to enjoy myself, be happy during the parties, assimilate within the 14 people I shared the floor on at my university halls, and I would pretend, mimic, copy others, or copy those idealistic things that I see on movies and rom-coms that I've just spoken about. The issue is, if I follow that path, I'm likely going to feel deeply unsatisfied and likely move far further away from my true self. If I don't align myself first, I will then follow paths that are completely misaligned, and I'm going to lose a lot of time and energy in the process. I could attract terrible mates, partners, jobs, dream careers, just based on pleasing, based on wearing a false identity and then collecting beliefs around that identity, which then materializes in terrible outcomes that just leave me deeply unsatisfied. So aligning yourself first essentially creates a periphery, a focused road of action. Anything that just doesn't fall in line with your path, like men that come in and dating, they're strong no's, there are clear boundaries. And when you've aligned yourself from what you currently know in the present moment is you, then you're likely going to pave a path rather than follow one that's going to send you adrift. So, of course, in this present moment, we can only look back at the past. Our intuition is only ingrained with that magical essence based on our evidence. To do so, we need to now avoid or eliminate what is not us and start to embody what is. Now, here are a few journaling prompts you can use to just get a rough idea of where you're at in life now, where you're currently interested, and where you want the future to look. First up, where do you spend your most time consuming? The stuff you look at on a Pinterest board, what you watch on YouTube, where you build your vision boards around. This is likely things you enjoy spending your time on. This is something that gives you flow, gives you satisfaction, and a great identification for where to begin. Secondly, what do you spend your money on? Now, this is showing what you value, what you want to materialize in your life. Now, this is a huge indicator for where you are right now. What is most organized in your life? This shows what you truly care about even more and what you want to keep orderly, organized, and things you genuinely cherish. Where do your thoughts tend to drift off, ruminate? This will show you patterns of association and where your mind is initially going. And what do you spend most of your time thinking about? This is probably where obsessions come from, things that you genuinely are passionate about. Now, listen to those thoughts. And also, what does your dream, ideal future look like? Now, get really tangible on this. What does the partner, home, living situation, dream career, spirituality, well-being, holistic balance, what does that all look like to you? What does it feel like? What does it look like? Get really clear on this. There's a famous social skill quote by Dale Carnegie in How to Win Friends and Influence People. He says, to be interesting, be interested. Now, why I ask you those prior questions is so you can align yourself to what you genuinely interested in, rather than you having to fake a smile, add fake questions to get yourself rapport with a person you probably are wasting your time and energy on. It helps you create connection-seeking missiles with questions that genuinely feel great to you. Actually, communication and conversations that feel passionate for you is a great filtration system. It's a great way to stay in alignment. It's a great way to see if the person reciprocates with what you genuinely are interested in. I'm not saying be a self-obsessed git. I'm just saying that you need to know your true core values, needs, and what you genuinely love in life, because there will not be any attraction between you if you're just faking your way through the first stages of dating. You're likely going to be codependent to what they need and what they love, then lose your sense of self through that partner. This is where toxic partners come from, who mold you into a partner they want you to be. This is what I call the Pygmalion effect. This is where somebody is using you as a tool to become more of what they want to be. They're not making you grow, they're probably making you deteriorate and drawing you, like I say, further away from your sense of self. All in all, it's about being a specialist, not a generalist. This proves valuable not only in business, but in your life and dating as well. This helps you be precise in your speech, and again, like I say, your word is your wand. Every action you take is likely having a big impact on the universe and how you genuinely attract things that are far more aligned and feel great to you. Now, finally, it's about using your intuition as your superpower, not your greatest saboteur. Now, we've done a lot about looking for evidence in the past. Now, we need to look at the 4 most important emotions that guide us along life. We've got number 1, pain. So look at the past. Where did you learn that created really painful experiences for you? This is teaching you to not settle and teaching you what may be a future threat. So in avoidant behavior, look for people who are inflating their sense of self, forgetting your own needs. They're not communicating to you. They're becoming an elastic band, not reassuring you. They're not bouncing back to you. They're genuinely inflating their sense of self. They're allowing themselves to ruminate over the one. They're thinking their Phantom X is always a better version of who they have in front of them too. So men tend to project their past onto you, and you don't deserve that. So don't play the same games. Try to communicate early your needs. Try and ground yourself in this true expression of yourself so you avoid the pain. Now, secondly, we have anxiety. So anxiety does steal from the present moment, but it's a huge, great tool that you can use to see if you are genuinely living a life, is productive, is meaningful, and is for meeting expectations that you've ruminated for your dream life. Third is satisfaction. This is all about teaching us what makes us feel good and what we should align more to. Fourth is faith. We always need to hold the container and energy for what could be in a positive, optimistic sense. It's what drives us forward. So those who are realists out there, it's time to integrate a bit more optimism, because you're not going to move forward energetically and lighter if we stay in a realist and pessimistic viewpoint. So for our intuition to really guide us through all of these 4 emotions, we need to ground ourselves in the present moment. It helps us not become reactive in relationships in the early dating phases. It helps us not make generalizations, accusations, and helps us not activate our anxious attachment or activate our sense of self-esteem when he becomes avoidant, if he ghosts us, if he neglects us. We should never take that personally. We should remind ourselves there are plenty of secure partners out there that we deserve. We need to focus on the problem at hand. We need to create a safe container for your man to step up into, rather than making your man step up. What you need to do is actually create almost a test. Create that container for him to feel secure, trusting, and have him feel like he can come out of his man cave, his den, vulnerably. It's about building trust, and it takes time to build trust. But make sure you communicate your need, that you require reassurance when he needs to take space. I watched a documentary just recently called My Octopus Teacher, and it was a beautiful analogy. When octopuses hide in their den, There was a man that came around and was studying this creature for about a year. And around about day 75, the octopus started to creep out of his den, very slowly and surely. He was putting out one tentacle at a time, and then suddenly his head would come out of the cave. This is showing the man was not breaching the boundary. He was not encroaching on the octopus's sacred space. He was not expecting the octopus to just step up, and he wasn't jeering the octopus with throwing rocks at it or trying to skew it out with a rod. He was just being relaxed. He was holding the energy. He was holding the space for the octopus to completely come out of the cave. Just like men, this is how we do it. And once you've created a safe container in the early dating phases or in middle relationship phases, and you've done all those things correctly, yet you're still getting all these false flags and red flags, it's time to use that intuition as a truthful communication to yourself. If you've given a chance and one chance is enough and it's been broken, and you've given that trust and it hurts enough to be broken, then I'm sorry to say we have to cut our losses. They call it the sunk cost fallacy. When you've invested lots of time and energy into a person and we've associated meaning with this person at a potential future, it becomes super dreadful when they've left our life because we believe that was a part of us, that was our sense of self. When they leave, we essentially lose a part of ourselves. So it's not about finding love. Love is already within. Use that loving guidance that you currently have and embody within to help attract, to help guide your way to a great emotionally available partner. And I want to wrap up with this. There's some books that say you should never die alone, and there's scarcity around the romance race and seeing on Instagram really happy couples on a beach, or people getting married in their 20s, a little bit like me. But you need not compare yourself to the external world. You may feel you're missing something right now, but I can assure you, you must stay single. Stay single until you have more certainty, until you have more self-trust. Because with that self-trust, you're guaranteed to commit to a partner that genuinely reciprocates what you've always been looking for. So it's not about rushing into relationships, it's about reminding yourself there's an abundance of secure, healthy men out there that are willing to accept you for you. And begin aligning yourself to things that bring you peace and grounding, while also making you feel growth in all the right aspects. Not the partner who brings you excitement and thrills and gives you that sensation-chasing feeling. Now we've come to the end. I hope this video has taught you how not to use tactics but become more of yourself in dating. To forget the stuff we are taught online and projected on and preached about. I want you to comment below your biggest takeaway from this video, and while you're at it, please do subscribe, like, and share with a mate. I know we're in this early stages of this channel, but I hope to build a community that's empathic, empowering, and heart-centered to help you feel less alone in this manipulative world of dating and love. There's a coaching link below if you want a free mini course which helps you heal heartbreak and come through creating that container we've spoke about today for a healthy, loving life partner. I'll see you on the next one.